Hi, and welcome to the Thoughtful Talent Show. I'm Jen Werner of Jen Werner Coaching.
And I'm Chad Ahern of Talent and Teams Consulting. And today we have two wonderful guests with us to talk about the theme of connectedness. I am pleased to introduce our first guest. She's actually a returning guest for us. Thrilled to have her here, Carolyn Grant, all the way from her new home in Greenville, South Carolina. I hope I got that right. She told me a little while ago. Carolyn is a fellow Gallup Certified Strengths Coach and consultant for entrepreneurs, leaders, and teams. Her clients include individuals and companies ranging from small entrepreneur startups to Fortune 100 corporations. Carolyn leverages her background in training and development to provide individualized approaches that help her clients improve organizational, team, and personal performance. Welcome back, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I love the snaps already, Jessica.
Yes, right. And it's my honor to introduce to you today a fellow Gallup and Eat to Grow certified coach, Jessica Cowan. So Jessica is the owner and principal consultant at Cowan Consulting, and their motto is, "You need our solution." They bring creative and innovative solutions to your unique business needs, including high performance team and leadership training, strategic planning, small to mid-sized business consulting, implementation planning, and capitalization consultations. She's also an adjunct professor teaching intro to computer programming at Rhodes College. So interested in that. And her background is in higher ed and nonprofit space, and she loves getting involved in her community and giving back. She coaches Little League basketball. She plays in a basketball league. She likes to play tennis and sits on the few boards for a couple of nonprofit and community organizations. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, awesome. So before we dive in to our CliftonStrengths talent theme today of connectedness, I wanted to check with you both to have you share with us and our audience where connectedness falls for you in your top 5. Jessica, where is it for you?
So connectedness for me is number 4.
Number 4. Okay. And Carolyn, for you?
It is number 2.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So we have the experts with us today to talk to us about connectedness. Now, Chad, do you want to start us off with what Gallup has to say about connectedness?
Sure. So as we always start every episode, we'll start with a short description. So Gallup defines this talent theme as follows. People exceptionally talented in the connectedness theme have faith in the links among all things. They believe that there are few coincidences and almost every event has meaning. So very big picture.
Yeah.
at least that's my initial take. So just as a reference point, I have this as number 7. So I am still learning how to best tap into my connectedness, which makes me very excited about today's show. Jen, do you mind if I ask where this falls for you?
Yeah, this is number 30 for me. So
Okay.
I mean, it's not at the very bottom, but it might as well be. And what I've learned already from other people that I've talked to who have connectedness is I don't know how to make those connections. Like that isn't something that comes natural to me. So I'm so excited to hear and share with our audience and our listeners, all of the great things you guys have to share with us today.
Awesome. Well, to dive right into the topic then, Jessica, I'm going to come to you first with this question, but I'm really curious if you can start to help us walk through how this talent theme shows up, maybe how it helps you think or how it helps you engage with those around you, maybe what behaviors others might see from the outside that demonstrate your connectedness. Help us start to understand. We'll get into also the theme dynamics and how it interacts with some of your other talent themes. But if we think about this theme in silo, what does that look and feel like?
Wow, a siloed connectedness. Who knew?
I know I'm putting up boundaries already, and I don't mean to be, but I want people to be able to focus on this beautiful theme.
Right.
Okay. Right. Okay. So this theme, for me, it is like the thing that connects everything. But it's like it literally connects me to life, beyond just the life we're here living today. It helps and inspires my purpose, I believe, like everything happens for a reason, and it's a big concept, but we'll get granular as we learn more about it. But again, like it really guides my purpose. It helps me believe like everything happens for a reason. Coincidence, there's no such thing as a coincidence. And a lot of times, like, I accept mystery. Like, I'm okay with not understanding the why behind some things, because I know that there might be a reason for me not understanding something at this point in time. But I can also connect the past, present, and future, so I can see a why, a deeper meaning of the why. And I love connecting people. I'm able to connect thoughts, feelings, ideas to like actual things that we're trying to get done. So for me, connectedness is in everything I do. It just kind of makes sense. It helps me make sense of life.
Awesome. That's a great start. Carolyn, I want to come to you with the same question, because as we've learned in doing other episodes of this show, the themes show up differently in different people, obviously, because we have different themes around them. We've lived different lives. I'm curious how your connectedness shows up for you, whether you want to expand on anything Jessica said or give us your own flavor of this.
So Jessica, that was well said, and I can relate to a lot of what you shared. So let me begin by an honest admission. I struggled with connectedness being in number 2. And I didn't understand it. I had a misperception of connectedness in the beyond faith in God. I'm like, how does this show up in my life? The descriptor didn't seem to fit me. And I was stuck for years, honestly. So we can always continue to grow and learn our strengths.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, and probably from coaching and coaching others with connectedness, it was the answer to what drew me to CliftonStrengths. Oh, that's why I ... So for myself, connectedness shows up now at my core. And it is my primary talent for doing what I do. It's purpose. It's finding links towards solutions for my clients, for myself. It is, it's my driver, and it's just my driver.
Nice.
That's fantastic. So I love the point you make about, taking some time to grasp and grapple with your talent themes. I think a lot of people, that particularly as they first get their talent themes, be like, okay, well, I've taken the assessment, I've done a little bit of a debrief, and that's the end of it. No, it's not. Carolyn, you're a trained coach and you're still wrestling with it. I think that's a really great side of both self-awareness, but also a clue and a key to other people that are diving into this, that we're always developing and we're always learning how to better utilize our talent themes. So thank you very much for being open and vulnerable with that, because that can be tough to say, particularly as we're supposed to be trained coaches, and people have this perception that we know it all. No, we're still, even as coaches and as individuals, growing ourselves.
Can I
Carol,
add something to that?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
Because like, I agree with that, and can relate to that too, because connectedness is such a, like, if it wasn't for this, like, being asked to be on the podcast, it's so hard to think about where connectedness shows up, other than, especially if we have high belief, because I have high belief as well. So it looks a lot like faith. It looks a lot like, it looks a lot like that. But if I take the belief away, like the connectedness, I think you mentioned, like before, like the ripple effect and the bridge, like the skill sets that we bring with this strength is so intermingled with other strengths that I feel like it is a hidden gem, but like you said, it's the core. It's really in the center of who we are. But because it's in the center, you gotta get through all the other strengths to see it, and so it really takes time. It took a lot of reflection to actually learn to appreciate what connectedness brings to the table and how it shows up. So
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, because I felt the same when you compared that to belief. I felt the same about my belief when I got it. Actually, Carolyn, I went through some of the same like struggles with the, like, okay, yes, I have beliefs and I'm pretty strong-minded about certain things, but where does, like, how does it really come out in me, and how do other people notice that? And I don't know that I even like accepted it. It wasn't like that like thing that's just in the background. And what I realized that it was at my core as well, and actually brought intensity to all the rest of my strengths. So I love that both of you were asking you to deconstruct connectedness, and it's one of those themes like it really can't be, right? It's truly connected.
Yeah. Can I just like to add something or ask something, because Carolyn, you and I have had conversations before about connectedness, and it's interesting that we're talking about it being as sort of the core, which is sort of a zoom in, and it reminds me of something else you said about this connectedness theme, which is sort of the ability to both zoom out and zoom in. And I was just wondering if you could talk our audience through a little bit of what you're getting at there, and that capability of this theme, because it was something interesting that I learned from you a while ago about this theme.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had noticed, that I see patterns, I see things, I lead through relationship building, and that is very strong for me. So when I'm in conversations with people and I say, well, that's because of, I am able to, I see everything as a part of a bigger picture naturally. I call it the zoom out. I can look at a problem, a situation, and zoom out and understand the connections of what got a person or a team to a certain situation, because that zoom out. But the zoom in is, I think of CliftonStrengths as a lens, right? Like a camera shutter, you zoom in. And so when you zoom in, you can go more granular to figure out what's going on, and then zooming out and to, how do we solve it? How do we help? How do I help bring understanding?
Awesome. Thanks.
And it is links.
Yeah.
They're all connected.
Yeah. Which also brings me to another question I want to ask around this, how this shows up at sort of the personal level, which is, can, and I don't know who wants to take this question first. I just want to sort of put it on the table and see who wanted to grab it. How do each of you think about and share or describe the connections between very disparate ideas, without losing people in that vast web of topics? I can already see your minds are thinking, 19 steps down the line, but the people you're probably talking to probably only care about steps 1 and 2, but your mind still wants to do that whole, like, well, these are all the other factors. How do you do that? The web is so big, but you need to focus, again, sort of that zoom in, zoom out. What does that look like? And how do you do that?
Yeah. For me, I mean, that is a very great question, a question that I often ask myself before I start going down a rabbit hole, like now. Okay, so how do I concisely answer this question? And so a lot of times, like, I mean, I really have to think of the why behind the question, because my mind goes into like a million different directions. You give me an ideal and it's just like a rocket ship with tentacles. And so all that to say is a lot of times I have to like be aware of like when I'm going down this rabbit hole, remind myself of the why, like, okay, what's the purpose of the question? Is the rabbit hole that I'm going down, or are the things, they're not all rabbit holes, because sometimes they're connected, so it's not a hole. All that to say is like a lot of times I have to make sure, like, one, is it related to the solution at hand or the problem that we're talking about? Are the connections that I'm making going in the right direction? Is it even worth like mentioning to this person? Do we have the capability to manage all of the connections that I'm drawing on? And if not, I slowly kind of bring myself back to be more concise and succinct. And depending on who I'm talking to, if they can catch what I'm throwing out there, then I might have to draw like a mind map or a diagram and really like display how it's all connected. And that helps out a lot too.
Nice. Carolyn?
Yeah, so I think for me, getting rooted in the why, and because I think coach training helped for me to realize I have to stay focused on what my client needs are. That helps me think of when I zoom out, I can see the end. And as my husband is an engineer, so he's very practical and pragmatic in thought. So years ago, he would talk about root cause. So that thought of an anchor or a root cause, getting to the why helps me realize I can't go off on a tangent. And frankly, just from life experience of realizing, just like people who have high futuristic, that they're in the future and they need to come and explain for the now, I recognize that in myself. So I've been very intentional to talk about action steps in step 1 and step 2. So those are the links become steps.
Yeah.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank you so much for answering that, because I've always been curious about delving into my own connectedness a little bit, because I have some tendencies that lead me in a dozen different directions, and then getting people to understand those links has been a challenge. So I appreciate starting to think about some solutions for myself, but I also hope our listeners are finding that helpful as well. So thank you.
Yeah, we know these don't actually operate in silo, and like we've always said in all of our past episodes, we see our talents as kind of a double-edged sword. There's the good edge that we use for good, and then there's the edges that we're like, that might be a little rough, and maybe I can get myself in trouble with that. Do you find, Jessica, that your connectedness talent can get you into trouble and maybe negatively impact you in any ways?
Yeah, especially before I understood it more, going from like the raw to the mature side of it. And even like today, sometimes like I will, like, because we see patterns and connections, and because we have kind of this core belief that, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes we're able to see connections that might be based on weak evidence, or it might not really, be there. So we have to ask questions and really, check our assumptions and check our intuition to make sure that those connections are really there. And also, like, I've noticed that sometimes, because we see the connections, if we're not communicating clearly what those connections are, depending on who we're listening to, it could be received as confusion, or like, oh, we're not sure about what we want to do. And really, we're like, no, I know exactly where we're going, but I also know that there's multiple options to get there, and it depends on kind of where we are, because everything's connected. So this is connected to that and that, and so it really just depends on what the answer is right now or at this moment. And so a lot of times it could cause can cause confusion and distraction if we're not communicating clearly the links that we see. So I have to be like aware of that, and also aware of the people that I'm connecting to each other, like make sure that it's purposeful, that there's a meaning behind it. And going back to the root cause, like the why is this important? Why am I doing this? And if there's no purpose, then we might not need to do that.
Carolyn, I saw you nodding a lot to those. Do you have similar experiences too?
I do, but I think for me, it's the blind spot of connectedness that gets in my way. Again, it's about being intentional. So I've learned, but kind of like positivity, the connectedness can be considered a naivete.
Yeah.
So I look at people as a part of a whole. So whether it's a team environment or one-on-one coaching, I see that more than other people do. So I walk into a situation and I get that I understand each individual person has their own needs and values, but the mission, the purpose should be for the whole group. And especially today, work is complex. So you've got people who are burnt out, that my celebration of the team and us moving forward as a team, I feel that in a way that I have to remind myself that other people don't. So that's the blind spot.
So just going back to your word of the say it for me, Jen.
I can't say it either. Yeah, there we go. That's the one.
Is that sort of that naivete about the individual you're sort of leaving them behind, or you're being a bit more optimistic about them than what's really in play. Is that what you're getting at?
It's about the optimism. It's exactly that.
Okay.
I walk into the situation, most situations, and I'm like, okay, in the end, this is all going to work. And people show up with a mindset of, yep, we want to make this work too. Yes, there are problems, but we want to come together to solve this and be united. And that isn't always the case. So I always start like that. And then I have to backpedal. And I find that it gets frustrating for me because my natural, again, this is at my core, is of course we want to work together to accomplish the goal. And when not everybody wants to do that, or cares, some people only care about themselves because they're, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying your ability to individualize that but yet, like, I think a superpower of the connectedness is that we're able to connect individuals to the big why and goal for businesses and stuff. And so really we're able to bring about purpose for the individuals and purpose for the team. But as you mentioned, there is that, let me try it, naivete on the situation where we can come off as very optimistic, because we can see the potential, that might be the developer, but we can see the connections. And so it's a superpower. And so I think, I'm learning, I have to like really communicate that. And then sometimes I have to tap on the individuals who might be like the Debbie Downers or the sour Sally. Sorry, we won't use the name, but Sally or something. I don't know. So I really have to, like, when those situations come, I have to really like connect with that individual, that relationship. I have to really like connect with them and see what their why is, and then help them individualize. Like, I have to maybe go tap into some other strengths when I see that occurring in a team setting. But I think that is a superpower for us as well.
Exactly. Thank you. Because I like that you explained the solution, because I agree that would be the same method.
It's so interesting because this even sounds a little like futuristic. Do you have that like comparison often because you're able to make the connections?
What would you say, Carol?
I think the zooming out and is the futuristic element. For me, it serves, this can't be siloed, really. So, so yes, there's a futuristic element, but there's also, I don't have high futuristic or high individualization. This, how people often we coach like, well, I don't have X theme in my top 10. And I'm like, but how does it present or represent? And that's what the anchor, that's why I call it it's the anchor. It's there, it's showing up as the vision, as the strategy, as the individualization.
Wow, I didn't know you didn't have high individualization. I would have guessed that was high for you. For me, individualization is high. Futuristic is number 27 according to my handy dandy app here. It's number 27. So like, but it does. I'm often thinking about the future in a way of like, okay, what is the meaning of life? Like bigger than me. It's bigger than just, I'm not the only one here. Here, in every interaction I have has that could have a long-term effect. And I think that's where the futuristic kind of comes in. I'm conscious of like how my interactions today impact tomorrow.
Yes, that ripple effect.
Yes, the ripple effect.
I just like to take a quick second because I think this is a beautiful demonstration of the actual connectedness theme as we're starting to learn it. Is that listen to these two wonderful coaches? They're already connecting like 3 and 4 other talent themes to this one, because they are all connected. And that, as much as Jen and I have tended to focus each of these episodes on a specific theme, I think it's just a beautiful demonstration of, and I want to celebrate it, that you have taken a siloed topic and all of a sudden all these beautiful stems are coming off and connecting back to essentially the core focus of the episode, which is connectedness. but we've already heard about futuristic individualization and
Developer.
developer and relator.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take a quick second, just pause with that thought, because I thought it was beautiful and worth celebrating, because it is a demonstration right in this episode of this theme coming out in both of these wonderful guests.
Well,
And what the audience doesn't know is, like, we did warn them beforehand that our connectedness strip kind of goes with the flow a little bit. But we are very respectful of the deliberative and responsibility things that are high for Jen and Chad. And so we're able to follow the structure, but they willingly allowed us to go with the flow too. So.
Yeah.
And we love that about both of you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And so because Chad brought us right down the alley of the like beautifulness and the just how beneficial this talent is, I wondered if you could both talk to us a little bit about like how you really see that this has impacted your life in really positive ways and big positive ways. And Carolyn, I want to start with you.
Well, once I discovered the beauty of this theme, I realized it is my driver towards working things through with people. Again, I lead through people. So personally and professionally, it helps me link, to connect, to feel a part of, and these close relationships, even with teams. I deeply care to build a genuine connection. And because I can see through our work together, the beauty of how it's going to benefit the individual and as well as the team, as well as the organization. So it shows up, that connection is vital and necessary.
Yeah. And you've shared with me before how you feel like it's even with that relationship building, that you're actually constantly building bridges. Can you go in a little deeper with that?
Yes. So we take for granted what comes most naturally to us, right? We work with our clients and we find that, and you're like, how can you not see? Well, because I do see, I really get a kick out of helping people build the bridge, the connection to where they're at now, to where they want to go. I can see the interlinking path to that. And that's the bridge. Or again, we talk about the ripple effect. It's powerful to look at and see how people can achieve their goals or build relationships. That's a big problem now. Communication is tough for people. So I think connectedness does help me understand the value of relationships. And you see it too, Jessica?
I do. Yes. 100% agree. Like, pulling the right people in to solve the right type of problems, gathering the right people in the community, whether that's like, trying to find supporters or advocates for causes and or when we're thinking about solutions, like we're really able to bring the right people in for the problem, and to really think about the solution and connecting people to other people who might have similar interests. Like, it doesn't always have to be about business, but it could be about just like building a community. Like, we're really good at that type of stuff. And so I feel like I see that a lot for me. Like, I was just agreeing to that, but I don't know if you're finished answering the question. Were you?
I am. Go for it.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Love you guys.
So it really shows up for me. And it's kind of like how I built my business, and even not even my business, but my life, because work and life for me are connected. They're connected. So it's important that I enjoy work, and it's very important that I enjoy life as well. So this whole connections is all about bringing past experiences that I've had to really help other people, businesses, live out their purpose, be successful, and all of that stuff. And Carolyn, you mentioned link the connections, like when we're able to help individuals just link things together. And so that's one of my favorite things to do is, a lot of times they talk about like, oh, focus on one thing. People with high focus, I I admire that strength. It's not up there. Focus and discipline are not up there. So when I'm working with other individuals who have a lot of things on their plates, like they're high performers, but they might have like 3 or 4 different business ideas. What I find like where connection really helps me, or connectedness helps me, is where I'm able to connect all the things they're doing, maybe put some structure behind all of these thoughts and ideas that they might not see how it's connected, or other people might not be able to see how it's connected. But I work with clients, we brainstorm. I have a big wall, and we're shoot everything that you're doing, your hobbies, your skills, every single thing. And let's zoom out and let's see how they're connected, and what's the best way to, what it looks a little bit like strategic, but what's the best way to connect all of these dots? Or let's see how I can see how this is connected to this, and just really helping individuals figure that out really helps them kind of, it really brings to eye, like if they're doing what they feel like they're called and purpose to do, or if they're not doing what they feel like they're called and purpose to do. And it's a really cool thing to do, but it definitely it's definitely interconnected with a lot of different things.
I can hear your passion in that, and it's so great. Like, I can feel you making all of these connections for people, and I can see that that's something you are so very passionate about.
Yeah, just that relationship building. I lead relationship building. My top 5, 4 of the 5 are relationship building, and then 8 out of my and then the other 4 are like executing. So I like people, and then I like to get things done.
Yeah.
So when they're connected, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So I've got two things. One is an observation. One is a question for both of you. Jessica, the wonderful image I had that came to mind as you were talking was it almost sounded like a reverse mind map. You start with the outside, blobs and put them all up on the board, and then the ability of this theme to kind of like bring it back, be like, oh, this is the core thing sitting in the middle. This is the thread that runs through all these other ideas. I could see you working at like a big whiteboard and having all these disparate.
You're in my classroom
blobs.
right now. Exactly how I teach. I'm like, let's brain fart on the board, and then we'll put it together. Like,
nice.
Throw it out there, and we'll connect it eventually.
Nice. That was my observation. One quick question, just for our listeners. I know that Jen and I have been in touch with you and know some of your themes. But could you just really quickly, for our audience, list off each of your top 5, just so that people get an understanding? Carolyn, you've mentioned so many relationship building themes around yours. Jessica, you've hinted at some, you just said a lot of relationship building, a lot of executing. Could you just go through your top 5 for us and for our listeners?
Sure. So maximizer, connectedness, developer, relator, and intellection.
Okay. Wonderful. And Jessica, for you?
Yeah. Developer, responsibility, individualization, connectedness, and relator.
Okay. Now I'm starting to see some of those fly into this as well.
Honorable mention is restorative at number 6.
Honorable mention.
I love that. I love that. So part of the reason why I was asking about your themes is that one of the next questions we've always been interested to explore with our guests is that, we've tried to talk about this connectedness in its own silo. That obviously with connectedness doesn't really work. But we're gonna lead into the connectedness now. And I'm just curious, given that it does not operate in a silo, I'm wondering if there are particular themes you find yourself pairing with your connectedness on maybe a little bit more of a regular basis. I know each of you has said this sort of sits at the core of a lot of your talent themes, or you're tapping into it on a pretty regular basis. But are there certain themes that you find really have helped sort of accelerate the success of the connectedness, or your ability to use it? Jessica, could we start with you?
Right. Yeah. So for me, some of those themes that show up as well, that really kind of like add value to it is, I'd say individualization, and restorative. And I often forget developer is number 1. So everything has potential. So even if I forget it, it's there. But individualization and restorative, I'd say, because I'm able to connect with, I'm able to see the potential in connections and really connect with people on a very unique individual level, and then tie the relator into that. Like, it's a very, like, we're able to have these very meaningful connections that might be short, like for a moment and stuff, but they last a lifetime, and then the restorative is that, like, I don't just like build relationships, but I look at building relationships that could help solve problems, like it's very solution oriented in a sense. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it could be, like a thing that I could work on, if the relationship has meaning, not even meaning, let's not say meaning. If I understand the why behind the relationship and there's more purpose in the relationship, then I find that that connection is a little bit stronger. And so, like, restorative and individualization, I think, really help this talent be more successful.
Nice. Carolyn, how about for you? I was noticing a lot of nodding on your side too. So
But
I'm not sure
what's funny. So yes, of course, we have similar talent themes in order. So I do agree a lot with what Jessica says and can connect to that. So I have intellection at number 5. So after our conversation previously, I thought, let me think about this a bit more. And I think maximizer and developer are the themes that really complement connectedness for me. And so, yes, I lead with relationship building, but every vision I have of the project at hand, the why, impacts the people, helping people grow, which is the developer. But the maximizer is all about quality and transformation.
Wow. So your meaningful connections are kind of like looking to, not for me, it's like solve a problem, but like for you, it's more of like, how can we like literally maximize the potential that you see, not just in the solution, but also the individuals involved in it, it sounds like.
No, exactly. So I know restorative is about fixing. That's a little bit lower for me. So mine is about solution. So I recognize that there's a situation that needs to change. It's the people who are going to have come to the individual awareness of what's the reason, their why, so it can impact the whole. And so cutting through, I think the maximizer filter helps me cut through to get to the nitty gritty.
Nice.
With the people.
Yeah. I love that.
Wow. Okay. So building on that, which is still a lot to take in, like so many awesome thoughts. I'm gonna have to use my learner later and go back and re-listen to this because I'm soaking in so much. I'm curious, as we think about those themes that have helped you be successful with your connectedness, we also know that sometimes our themes can get kind of a runaway train. They don't necessarily need to be reined in, but maybe figure out the right speed limit for it. Sometimes we've talked about going down rabbit holes or just going way too far with some of our themes. I'm wondering if there are themes that you have found useful in, again, not reining in, but helping find the right balance for the connectedness and, being able to optimize it, but not overdoing it. And are there themes that you look to or start to loop into your thought process around that? And Carolyn, I'm wondering if you could start us off with thinking about that.
So I really see my top 10 every day. So my response to the rabbit hole is the responsibility is my number 6. That keeps me focused on where I need to be, and input through the people. So it helps me dial down, zoom in to not go off on a tangent. Because I think if I go off on a tangent, at some point I'm like, all right, I'm making it about me. And I'm not supposed to be making it about me. It's supposed to be about problem solution or for whom I'm coaching. So I had to zoom out beyond the 5 though the others are still at play, but I'll just say responsibility and input.
Okay. And,
Oh,
Carol, Jessica, what about for you?
I was going to take responsibility definitely helps as well. With that focus piece and you know, maintaining just the ownership of like really being solution oriented and remembering the why are we here, tied with belief and analytical really helps bring me out of the rabbit hole, in the sense of when I start asking with the analytical, just start asking the right questions. Like, is the rabbit hole that I'm on, is it related to the core problem? Is it related to the solution? Is it leading them in the right direction? Is it just causing confusion? You know, I start looking and taking in notes as far as where I'm going. And this sometimes happens as I'm going on a tangent. Belief also, like belief, I think helps as well when like just aiming it towards something like a purpose. Again, with the why, like the why and purpose are kind of like interchangeable, but like if I know that the connection, like if I know that either what I'm saying or the bridges that I'm building has meaning, then I know that it's, you know, a good connection to continue on. And if it doesn't have meaning, then I usually like kind of like, or if it's, you know, outside of my own moral compass, I kind of like, you know, just pull myself out the rabbit hole.
It's interesting to me, and of course I'm hearing it and loving it because you're both using responsibility, and you know that's my number two, so or my number one. So that's what happens with that. But I'm loving hearing you guys say that, you know, like in order to pull you back to what the core of the mission is, because you could see all the connections. You've talked to us before about not being able to communicate those connections to people is where it like starts to trip you up, but using that responsibility to help it bring you back to the core of like what we're trying to get to just really speaks to me. So I wanted to celebrate that too. Thank you.
Yeah, I find that it's useful. A lot of times, like even if I see that like my audience or whoever is lost, I will have to like just check, like make sure I'm communicating the connections that I'm making. Because a lot of times we see the connections and we think about the connections and we forget that everyone can't always follow where we're going. And so sometimes it really allows me to like pause and be like, okay, wait, let me connect the dots for you or show you all the dots and the connections, and then we can go from there. And so that's important, I think, for people with high connectedness to remember, is that communication is key. And if you can't communicate, you know, we have multiple ways of communicating now. So
yeah,
Nice.
so good. It sounds almost like strategic a little bit, you know, like making those connections, because I've had that with people who are high strategic too. Like they already see it, they know all the pathway is already drawn out, and I'm like, how did you even get there? I thought we were on step B, you know, and they're already to M, and I'm like, I have no idea how to get those places in between. So yeah, thanks for like connecting those things for me.
I always say that my strategic is through people. I find myself, I really, because I do come in second for strategic thinking, but really it's being able to be in tune to and seeing those links. I do see it as a very strategic path.
Yeah,
towards the goal.
That is true. And I wonder how it shows up for other people, because it seems strategic on our end, but I see it as like just connections, because people will call me and say, hey, do you know someone who does A, B, C, and D? And I'm like, yeah, I got, you know, A, B, C, and D for you. And what they don't know is they might come with another problem that they don't even know that one of my people or connections has a solution for. So I like to like be strategic in that manner of like helping them solve multiple problems with maybe like one or two people, and building bridges like in that manner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Chad, did you want me to lead us into the next question?
I would love it if
you
want to take us there.
Yeah, sure. So in our experiences with clients and other people we may have coached in the past, sometimes we've found that we might see a different blend of talents in someone's top 5 that makes their theme, so like in this case connectedness, come out in a really different way. So as an example, I have a friend who has connectedness really high. She also has empathy really high. So for her, it's incredibly difficult for her to watch a movie or a show or, you know, something on the news. She gets deeply affected by things that are happening to humans that she may never meet, doesn't know anything about them, but it puts her to this place where she cannot physically pull herself out of the empathy she feels for people that she might not even ever know or even get a chance to be physically and like interpersonally connected with, but she feels that deep connection. So I thought that was just really interesting as I was reflecting on connectedness and who I know who has it. And this really, it was very unique for me to learn that about her, because it was something that she was almost offended in lots of ways by a lot of things that I would say most of us just kind of like, yep, it happens. It's horrible, but it happens, and we and have to move on with our day. Whereas she is really in that moment, and I think it's that mixture of empathy and connectedness that gave her that like ability to really feel for others. Have any of you had some kind of unique combinations of connectedness or met anyone who like shows a little differently than the lens we're seeing through you?
I just
Carolyn?
want to share the word choices that you just used really put me in my parent mode, because
Oh.
you just described my daughter, and I didn't make the connection because my empathy is lower than hers. She has empathy number 1, connectedness number 2 as well.
Oh.
But how our
Wow.
connectedness shows up is very different. So she lives very much in the moment, which I always thought, oh, I have adaptability in my top 10. That's why, I can live in the moment too and be pretty flexible. And I realized as I began to understand connectedness, oh, now I understand why she feels the way she does about things that I don't care about. I care, but I don't use the word offend. She does get offended at people when they do not behave in the way that is not just empathetic, but look at this, the commercials on TV where the dog,
Oh, yes.
right? It's hard, right? It's a wonderful but horrible commercial to watch.
Yes.
And so I will change the channel because I know the commercial, I've watched it enough. I don't want to get upset over the dogs that need to be rescued or grow up in a puppy mill. She will watch, and then she will find other scenarios that fit. So that empathy, connectedness, and then in that offense, the word offense, I'm like, thank you. That's a better story than I could come up with any of my clients.
Yeah, no, I don't think we can. I can't talk. That's a great example. Like it shows up differently for different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thanks, ladies. Chad.
I had one, and I'm not going to try and top that at all. But I also have a family member. I'm going to just leave it at family member instead of naming what
You're not
the
going to throw that
relationship is.
person under the bus like I just did. But
No buses today.
no buses,
no
honestly,
buses.
no.
No, but I have a family member, and she has connectedness in her top. I forget exactly where it falls, but what's really interesting is that she also has maximizer and responsibility. And I mentioned at the top of the show that I have connectedness as number 7, and I can usually follow a lot of different sort of trails, these bridges, these interconnected conversations. And yet sometimes when I try and relate to this family member, the connectedness and the intensity of theirs versus mine is dramatic. And I think part of it is the maximizer wants to look at all the connections. And we talked again at the top of the show about sort of there are no coincidences. There's a level of faith that comes with this theme a lot of times, and a level of faith that this individual has can make it look like they're making decisions that haven't necessarily been thought through, but that her maximizer in that faith is like, this is all going to work out. And that, because I have analytical and responsibility and deliberative, I'm thinking, whoa, let's time out and let's look at this situation here. It kind of goes to your point, Jessica, about if you don't make those connections, you don't communicate those of us with very questioning or very risk awareness are like, okay, serious timeout. We need to back this train up and go, all right, what are the steps you're actually taking here? And so it's just been really interesting to learn from the two of you about this theme, hear about it in this episode, and start thinking about, how can that improve the connection I have with this family member. But the maximizer responsibility with connectedness blend has just been a very intriguing one to sort of not pull apart in a destructive way, but just sort of figure out what the layers of that onion are, so that I can better relate. Yeah, my analyze is coming to play here a little bit, but it's just the level of the maximizer seems to add a tinge of fervor is probably too strong a word, but it's that intensity of connectedness. This will work out. There are no coincidences. These doors keep opening, so I'm just going to keep right on walking through them. And yet there are those of us around this film where they're like, wait a minute, you got from, again, sort of that step A to step M, and how did you get there, and the time frame and all the rest. So I appreciate you all highlighting this sort of thread finding, the mind mapping, the value of communication, because the blend I'm seeing is tinted, not tinted a little differently than what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Chad, thanks for sharing that, because you got me thinking about my family member and seeing if maximizers and connectedness happen, because it's a lot. Like you said, there's something extra. It looks different. The connections are stronger to, life beyond is what I mean. I've even thrown some big concepts out here, but I'm a very realistic person at the end of the day. So it still needs to kind of, have a meaning and stuff. So that just made me think about, like that maximizer with connectedness, and then what that looks like. And even, just analyzing and really asking the right questions. And I think we should note that communication is connectedness is not a influencing or communication strength. So there might be a lack of communication when someone with high connectedness is unable to communicate properly, like what is all going on in here, because it is a lot that happens, I feel like, internally when we're trying to explain what we're trying to explain.
It brought me back, listening to you guys talk about this just now. It brought me back to the very beginning, and that almost intuition that you guys used that word, intuition. It's like you might not have all the facts and data, but you have enough pieces of the puzzle to make the connections that make it look like, to us, like you have that intuition as to where it's going to happen. And maybe maximizer just ups that level even more. Really interesting.
Because that intuition is strong. It's really strong for us. Like the intuition, and a lot of times when you're working, and even with clients, and we have to like know this as coaches, is like our intuition is our superpower. But sometimes facts and data is what our clients and want, what they want and what they need, actually, not even want, but what they need. And so a lot of times that's where we have to really like communicate our why, like, and where does this come from, and how it works for us, and that trusting in, something bigger than ourselves, and that it'll all work out in the end too. So
Oh, really good.
That was a big conversation, and I get that the connectedness loves the vastness. I think is one of the words that's coming to mind as we continue through this episode. I want to help us bring this down a little bit more to Yeah, not so much
A little
levity,
lighter.
but just, we've
Yeah.
talked really in depth about this theme, and that's beautiful, and has added so much seasoning and understanding of the nuances of this theme. For those that are just getting to know their themes, or maybe even somebody that is trying to understand somebody that has connectedness, I'm wondering if each of you might have an image that comes to mind that somebody might be able to use as sort of an entry point for this theme. On some of our other episodes, we've talked about pop culture references, household objects, images that we've seen, in our daily lives. Is there a theme? Is there an image or picture or a song even that really sort of exemplifies this theme a little bit, so that people can start to understand it before they delve into the depth to which we just went? And Carolyn, I want to start with you.
Well, now you have my mind going on
Well-
songs. So we were talking about families. Then I thought We Are Family by the Pointer Sisters, but that's not really addressing the image. But now I am going to come up with a song for future reference. But anyway, I think the image for me is the internet, any image that shows interconnecting of like links is the strongest, or building blocks. We all see how coaches will put on their website, the stairs that lead up to somewhere. Every step is a link towards achieving whatever the goal is. So I think, my third favorite, or maybe it's my favorite, it's the ripple when you throw the pebble in the pond and
Okay.
the water ripples, and
Yep.
there's impact that you just can't see yet, below the surface, above the surface, on the surface.
It's a good one.
Nice. Jessica, what's
Yeah.
yours?
You also had me thinking about a song. I don't like the song that came to mind first, so I will still mention it, but I should put it on record that it's not one that I wish came to mind. But it's We Are the World.
Okay.
Yeah.
That comes to mind. And the image, though, the original question with the image is gadgets. How they're all interconnected and they play off each other. So if one gadget is not working properly, it affects the whole machine.
Are you talking about gears or gadgets?
Yeah, gears and
Gadget
gadgets.
gears.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Gadgets
got
and
it.
Gears.
Got it. Okay.
The tech background in me sees everything as like a machine operating.
Yeah.
People,
Okay.
we are the tools that we need. People are the most important tools. Yeah. So gadgets and gears, I see that as connectedness.
Nice. Jen?
I have a song.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I am not singing for one,
like,
but my other one, after listening to the two of you talk about it, I really see the connectedness almost like the synapses in the brain. So that was the one that I liked the most. Like I'm looking, like those pictures that they show, like when they show a brain and then they show them someone they love, and how all the parts of the brain will light up, and so I see that almost physically see that in the two of you when you're talking, and making all the connections as you're talking. I'm I'm imagining your brains all lighting up.
I like that.
Places.
Yeah.
But my song is from I think it's 1987 animated movie called An American Tale, and it was Somewhere Out There. So it's the little 5-0 mouse, and he's dreaming about his family member, I think brother, I don't even remember who, but they're all looking at the same sky. So that's my song.
Nice.
It's great.
Yeah. I'm gonna offer one. I love the synapse one. I've got a brother in neuroscience, so that's really ringing with me. But the image that came to mind as I was preparing for this episode was constellation maps. So in the starry sky, most people see just the points of light, and they're sort of scattered about with no real sort of pattern. Well, what I hear in this whole conversation as I continue to try and understand the theme is that those with connectedness are seeing the pictures that we often draw in constellations, Orion or the Big Dipper, Leo, was it Libra and Leo, and all the zodiac signs, amongst many others, and just the way to draw those in a way that makes sense And then, as we know, oral history, those are often used to tell stories about the movement in the sky, and Orion, the hunter, chasing, what is it, a fox or a lion or tiger or something. But just making all those connections and seeing the lines and how they all relate to each other was the image I came up with. So
Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots. I like
Connecting the
somebody-
dots, literally.
Yeah.
Big picture, and then we're able to connect the dots. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sky's a big place.
it is,
Mhm.
a lot of room to
Yeah.
roam your thoughts around. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Chad, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. I'll keep playing to my learner and ask questions here.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm curious, we've talked a lot about information and the amount of information that both of you can process and, sort of sort through and put on, mind map trees and so forth. And one question I've always had about connectedness, and it's one I often also will ask about intellection, is can you ever have too much information? I'm a learner. I love to take in all sorts of input, and my analytical will help me sort through it. But I'm just thinking, in terms of the way you've talked about this, I'm just wondering, is there ever an overload? And what do you do with vast amounts of information when it is sent to you? I'm just wondering if you could sort of help us understand, as somebody with connectedness, what happens with vast amounts of information for you?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who wants to pick that one up first. Sorry, I sort of put that on the table without a particular audience in mind, but both of you have brought up this idea of just being able to build mind maps and connections and bridges and links to all sorts of things. I'm just wondering what happens when all that information comes at you kind of at once.
Yeah. You want me to take this one? Or okay. It's such a, like, that's a great question, because originally I'm thinking like, no, there's no such thing as too much information. But then it's, as long as I can connect the information to something, like, if I'm getting too much information and I'm not able to connect the dots or see how they're connected, I will sometimes get a little lost in the sauce. Like, I'm like, okay, wait, this is like, let's pause, take a step back. Like, how is this related to where we started? And then if you just connect it, and then once you're connected, we can start right back where I got lost. But so it just needs to, when I'm getting too much information, sometimes I need to pause and like ask for what is the connection. And guess what? If it's not connected, you just need to let me know that. And I could just put it aside somewhere else, and still have it like in my pocket somewhere. But for me, like, as long as I'm able to connect the dots, or at least see the connection, or know that whether or not there is a connection, there's no such thing as too much information for me. It's only too much information when I don't know what to do with the information.
That makes
Got it.
sense.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Carolyn, what about you?
More information, listening to someone, the more information they give me, that gives me more, my maximizer filter helps me sort what's quality to help to address the root issue.
Okay.
So I don't, more information, because people, as they share their stories, we learn more about them, and then there are clues to how they think, feel, and behave. So I don't feel overwhelmed. I do think my maximizer plays a lot to filter out the extraneous information.
And you've mentioned you have input somewhere in your top 5 or 10.
It's number 9.
Number 9. Okay. So I know this a little bit from our previous conversations and working together. So you'd mentioned something to me before about when you get tons of information, you at least have sort of a parking lot for extra information. Kind of like Jessica was saying, it kind of gets put to the side. Your input still sort of benefits from that, correct?
It is. It's funny for me, and I know I hope it's related, but my input is a part of my problem solution. So after I've listened to someone, hear where they're at, my input then says, okay, what do I need to learn, number 10, about this person to help them solve their problem?
Got it.
Develop solutions.
Okay.
So yeah, I park my data.
Yeah.
Park your data. All
Well,
right.
and like Jess said, like she keeps it, but it might be like on the back shelf because that doesn't pertain to what we're like working on in this moment. So I love that idea of like
Right.
parking it to the side and let me see what we could do with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask our last question before we close, and that would be, so if we're talking like you as individuals with connectedness, what
Mhm.
are some ways that you could help maybe a team leader or team members help you or others who have connectedness really offer their best contribution to a team? So I think some of the things we talked about before were, you know, like that ability to be heard and actually share what you see. Can you Jessica, can you start with us and share with us what ways the connectedness, you know, really can bring to
Yeah.
the team?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And part of the answer is related to what Carolyn had just mentioned in able to connect people with how they think, feel, and behave. I think that's like the more we learn about people, the more we learn about the teams that we're working with. So giving someone with this strength, like the ability to kind of some autonomy and freedom to learn more, to get to know the team members that they're working with, to get to know the leader and to really see how that is connected and how they're connected to the purpose, the big why, you know.
Nice.
I think because this talent and thing can take in some information and see patterns, that is very valuable for any team member to really help help nurture and develop that strength in someone, because you don't want them to like overgeneralize things or make assumptions. You really want to help them give reason to the whys that they're the connection. So if they can, you know, help them communicate the why behind and what they see, give them the freedom to explore what is the purpose behind this connection, or is this person in the right position, or are we working on the right goals? Like that root cause check, like are we actually solving the right problem? And are they connected, or is this problem connected to another problem? So really allow them to build the connections, and then you can challenge them by asking them questions about the connections that they see. I think that's, you know, the value add that someone with this strength has, and also how a leader or anyone working with them can help them really tap into their superpower.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, Carolyn, do you have anything to add to
That was
that?
wonderful. So there's not much I
Yeah.
can add. I think people with high connectedness, though, that can really integrate the parts of each individual team member into the whole team and see how, so the strength pairings, like you came together to do this podcast to complement each other, those complementary partners. I think people with high connectedness spot that sooner than other people.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Yeah. Oh. I'm sorry. I'm just taking a
This
second to
is so
soak this
good.
all in.
Yeah.
Like it's just the again, the word that
It
keeps
is
coming to mind is
faster.
vastness. What's that?
I was like, I don't realize how fast these connections are, you know, made for people with high connectedness. So it is, that is like it, that's a good, like it is a faster kind of connection. We're able to see these things that other people might need more information or data behind to prove that there is a connection, whereas we have that gut intuition that is that the connection is there, that there's something there.
Yeah.
Exactly. The analogy of the car, I don't know if you learn this in training, you know, how the different themes are parts of a car, the activators, gas pedal, you know, when the deliberative is the
Break.
brake, right?
Break.
So
That's Jen and I.
I know.
Except
I know.
Jen's got both.
And I have both. I'm just both on at the same time.
But I love language, and the language that was shared today for connectedness is beautiful, and that vastness, to appreciate that, yet honoring the individual characteristics of each person and what they bring to the whole, to the team. That's powerful to me and really, really resonates. And so I often think of I am this way. And when I come across someone with deliberative or high analytical, I appreciate that that person's brain operates differently from mine. So I think connectedness, I find, gives us with high connectedness an appreciation for others' talents.
That's true. Yes. And I sometimes might give that credit to another strength, but connectedness is definitely in there as well.
But what other strength, may I ask, do you connect?
I was going to think like individualization, and the I think like it kind of looks like includer sometimes, but it's really that connectedness that knows who to bring. You know, it knows who to bring, but it knows the why behind I'm bringing this person. I can tell you why this person needs to be at the table, and so that's a good reminder for me.
That's good.
That's a
Chad,
good
I don't know.
differentiation between the two of them. That's really good. Love that.
I also wonder, because I don't have high harmony. I know Chad does. Jen, I don't know where your harmony is, or Jessica, yours. But for those of you that do have higher harmony, do you see a little bit of connectedness through harmony?
That's a really good question. So this actually leads into something I was going to share anyway, because I've learned so much in this episode, and I'm starting to now piece some things together for myself that I probably wouldn't have at the beginning of this episode. So first, let me take your direct question. I don't see harmony in the same way you see connectedness. At least for me, my harmony has a very what I describe as a practical edge. There's a very like, I don't deal well with the emotional turmoil in meetings, because we seem to have gotten away from the solution. You know, Jessica, you've mentioned that so many times during this, you know, the root cause, what's the solution we're really after. The emotional turmoil that people want to stir up, this takes energy away from looking at that very practical edge,
Right.
and very practical solution. So I can't quite say that my harmony comes across in the same sort of way that I think you are playing with here. The observation I'm having for myself, as much as I really want the focus to be back on you as guests, again, harmony, I much prefer the eyes to be elsewhere, is that in some of my coaching sessions, when I'm working with clients, I start to see the dots or what their end solution is well before they do. And one of the things I'm taking away from this episode and doing this and learning this all from you is that's my connectedness coming to play. I was putting it someplace else. I wasn't quite sure. I thought it was my analytical and finding the patterns. But what I'm starting to see and understand is it's a blend of connectedness and maybe a little analytical stirring together. The challenge for me has always been I'm seeing those connections, and then I have to hit my own mental break to say, no, they've got to come to this solution on their own. And that has been a bit of a challenge for me that I continue to work through in terms of, okay, I see the solution, you know, but I can't force them to go in that direction. They've got to find their own solution. So it was just, I share that as sort of a learning takeaway that I'm having. I appreciate the question about my harmony, but my harmony does not play the same way you've described your connectedness. That's the short version.
Thank you for sharing.
But I very much appreciate all you have highlighted today in helping me understand it's not my analytical. You know, you were talking about I think it was your developer earlier, and you were putting a lot of weight on what you thought was developer, which was actually your connectedness. I think I've been putting a lot of weight on my analytical when it's really been the connectedness and finding the pieces and piecing them together. Whereas I thought that was the pattern recognition side of analytical. So anyway, that's just my brief takeaway as I go back and now reflect on this whole hour and something exchange we've had, which has been fantastic. I just shared my highlight. I'd like us to wrap up this episode with some highlights from the two of you. We've covered a lot of
connection right quick. I'll keep
yeah, sure. It's unavoidable, right? They're connectedness. They're seeing all the pieces come together.
Yes.
So yes, Jessica, go ahead, and then
It's real short.
yeah.
So harmony is number 11 for me, and I don't see it like Chad. I originally was like, maybe not, but sometimes the rabbit hole is because I can see the win for everyone involved. And so that's when I have to sometimes lean on other strengths, like the response, like, is it a priority for them? Like, is it fit an immediate need or a long-term, like, is it even a goal for my client, or is it something that I can just see that is a win for somebody else and them? So it's just, I can see a lot of wins when harmony kind of tries to tap into the connectedness, but I have to kind of like prioritize the why, the purpose, the goals when that happens.
Nice.
Nice.
So that's actually a beautiful little segue into what I was going to ask anyway, which is, what have been your main takeaways, or what, if we were to think about, either a short or some sort of encapsulation of this episode, are there 2 or 3 main takeaways that each of you would want our listeners to really come away with in terms of understanding this connectedness, or something that we've already covered, you just really want to reemphasize again to make sure that people truly understand it? And as much as your connectedness would love to give us the whole shebang, probably all over again, if we could keep these to fairly short, succinct takeaways, that would be, I think, great for our listeners. So Carolyn, I'd like to start with you. What are your 2 or 3 takeaways that you'd like our listeners to really walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway for connectedness for me is for people to understand the genuineness, the authenticity that shines through in seeing those links, and how really their strengths, it's hard to silo connectedness because of those links. So the value, we talk about hard skills and soft skills. So the recognition of the soft skill that comes through the talents associated with connectedness are equally as valuable than people who are highly analytical from a data, numerical data standpoint. There's a great superpower to connectedness that I will reiterate that is more newer found than a few years ago when I first started on this journey. And so that's the biggest understanding of the value of focusing on that outward, zoom out perspective to problem solving and bringing people together.
Nice.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Jessica, what's your 2 or 3 takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah, so we almost made it the whole session without the dog. As a presence.
Yes.
I'd say the most important takeaway, I agree with what Carolyn said, is like is really like the value that someone with high connectedness brings. It's really that building the bridges and not just with people, but also like building the bridges amongst like individuals to like the bigger goal, the bigger purpose.
Nice.
And really taking something like our everyday tasks and really kind of helping motivate people to think beyond themselves, and so I think that's really important. And another takeaway that I'd say is, for sure, is really helping to help connectedness flourish and to help someone with high connectedness either tap into it more is really, explaining the why. Like if you see someone with high connectedness that might be a little lost, you might have to remind them of the why, or ask them, their why, or make it like connect the dots for them. If you notice that they're not making the connection, help them see the connection, and then it's like the takeoff. They take off and they'll be that, they'll just flourish in that strength a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, because I'm not sure I would be able to summarize connectedness that well. So
that was excellent, Jessica.
Yeah.
I even wrote a note on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yours is great too.
Awesome. Well, those are beautiful, wonderful summary points, and I'm sure our listeners will find those extremely helpful. I would just like to thank both of you for sharing so much of your time with us and our listeners, and helping understand this theme so thoroughly. So as we wrap up, I'd just like to share with our listeners that if you've enjoyed spending time with Jessica and Carolyn, we have many other episodes already published and more to come. And so we encourage you to subscribe to our channels. Jen and I each have our own YouTube, and then of course we have our podcast on Acast. So please subscribe, leave a comment, engage with the conversation. We'd love to hear what other things other people with connectedness might experience in their lives. So please leave us comments and reviews so that we can make the algorithm bots happy and more people can hear the wonderful content we've explored today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say thanks again. You guys made so many connections to things for me. And I think personally, for me, it was that ability to zoom out, because being detail oriented, having lots of executing, many executing in my top 5, that's where I go, is to those details. I'm right down in the nitty gritty. So having someone, knowing you can zoom out and actually see the bigger picture is just really helpful. And if you, as listeners and viewers, if you want to get in touch with Jessica or Carolyn, we're going to have their contact information in our show notes, so you can reach out to them individually or directly, so that you can get more information from these wonderful humans we've had on the show. And as always, if you need anything from me or Chad, our information is in the links as well.
And so with that, until next time, until our next episode, I'm Chad Aher from Talent and Teams Consulting. Encourage you to keep playing to your strengths.
And I'm Jen Werner from Jen Werner Coaching, encouraging you to be uniquely you. Thank you.
Have a great day.